In this video, I'll be showcasing how you can use Finviz.com to display an awesome report showing you the best and worst performing individual stocks and sectors in the stock market during different time periods. This is an awesome tool because it lets you visually see what trends are currently taking place within the stock market. Best of all, you can access this report totally free at any time. To do so, simply go to finviz.com and within their top navigation bar, select Maps. Once you click into this, it will bring up a heat map of the S&P 500 stock index by default. The view will be set to show the one-day performance of every single stock within the S&P 500 index. The heat map is color-coded, with red showing the worst performing stocks during the day and green showing the best performing stocks in the index during the day. The heat map is also categorized by sector. So you can see that we have technology, communication services, consumer cyclical, energy, and plenty of other sectors. Each sector is also made up of industries. So for example, the technology sector has software infrastructure, consumer electronics, semiconductors, and other industries which make up the broader technology sector. On the heat map, when you hover over a particular industry, it will bring up a tooltip displaying all of the individual companies within that industry in the S&P 500. So when I hover over semiconductors, it's bringing up every single semiconductor company within the S&P 500, and I can visually see what the price movements are for all of those individual stocks in that industry. So I can see here that Nvidia is down nearly 3% on the day, Intel's down a little over 1%, and AMD is down nearly 2%. This is great because it lets you visually see what industries are doing each day performance-wise, and you can see if they are overperforming or underperforming relative to the broader market, which helps you spot trends. So for today, semiconductors definitely were underperforming the broader market as they had sharper losses, whereas energy was actually positive on the day and seemed to be an outperforming sector. You can also change the map filter to follow different things other than the S&P 500. So if I change to the world filter, it's going to start displaying foreign stocks that are listed on American exchanges. So I can get a look at Canadian stocks, UK stocks, Chinese stocks, and see how each of these are doing. If I change to the full filter, it's going to show me all stocks that are listed on US stock exchanges, and they're going to be categorized again by sector and industry. The main difference here is that now everything in the stock market is fair game, and now it's not going to just be showing me S&P 500 stocks. So if I hover over the semiconductors industry again, you can see that the list of stocks in the tooltip is much larger because the full list of stocks is in this heat map. The smaller squares are companies that have smaller market caps. So Apple is the biggest square because it has the largest market cap in the stock market, but all of these other companies with tiny squares are smaller companies and have smaller market caps, so they take up less space on the heat map. To zoom in and see these smaller companies, you can click this plus button here and click and drag around the heat map to get a better view of what these smaller companies are doing. You can also change the performance metric from the one-day performance to look at different time frames. So for example, if I want to look at 1 week performance and see how stocks in different sectors did over the past week, I can do so by just changing that filter, and I can get a view of what's currently happening over the entire week. So when I change this filter, for example, I notice that insurance seems to have had a really, really good week, with most of these stocks being up nearly 5% or more. You can also change this to be 1 month performance, 3 month performance, 6 month performance, 1 year performance, or year-to-date performance. And all of these different time frames will help you observe trends of what's been happening in the market during these time frames and help you make decisions. You can also change the view to show fundamental information about the companies. So for example, we can pull up a heat map of price to earnings ratios in the stock market. The red price to earnings ratios are higher PEs, and the green ones are lower PEs that might represent a better value. You could also change the filter to look at something like dividend yields. So if I'm interested in targeting companies that have high dividends, you change the view to show that on the heat map, and now we see all of these green stocks are ones that have high dividend yields that we could look at targeting. Another interesting view is the earnings date view, which lets you see what companies have upcoming earnings reports. The ones in blue have upcoming earnings reports soon. So for example, we see Salesforce is reporting on August 24th. We have Baidu reporting on August 30th. We have Zoom reporting on August 22nd. And we see here that all of these grayed out companies have already reported. So if you're interested in tracking upcoming earnings reports and who has yet to report, you can do so with this heat map here. The other thing that I want to cover is that you can actually change the map view to be a bubbles view. And this will change your view entirely so that it has an X and a Y axis in a dot plot type of format. By default, the y-axis is going to be showing you the percentage change of the stock during the day. And the x-axis, by default, is going to be showing you the particular sector that the stock is in. This is also color-coded down here, as you can see. And if you hover over any of these bubbles, you can see what the particular stock is and how they performed on the day. Analog devices over here was down nearly 5% on the day, and you can see that reflected on the y-axis here as it's down nearly negative 5%. If you click into the bubbles view, by default it's going to show you just stocks in the S&P 500 index, but if you turn on any, it'll bring up the entire market. This is something that you might not necessarily want to look at in the dot plot format though, because there are often major outliers with huge price movements on a particular day. So I usually tend to keep this as the S&P 500. You can also change the bubble color to reflect something other than the sector if you'd like. You can also filter down to just a specific sector. So for example, if I just wanted to look at technology stocks, I can turn that sector on. And now I just see the price movements for technology stocks within the S&P 500. So this dot plot's another really useful way of visualizing what's currently going on in the market in any given day. Another quick thing that I just want to show you is the group section within Finviz, which is another great way of visualizing trends that are going on by sector. This will show you one-day relative performance of each individual sector within the market. As you can see here today, energy was the only positive relative performance, and everything else had negative relative performance, with communication service, basic materials, and consumer cyclical being some of the worst performers. On the 1 week relative performance, it's a different story, with most sectors being positive overall, with consumer defensive being highest. 1 month, we can also see that industrials is now the highest. So looking at each of these individual time frames will show you different trends that are currently taking place on those different time frames. Depending on what type of investor you are and what time frame you're looking at predominantly, you're going to want to be paying attention to what sectors are performing best on that particular time frame. And this is a super useful tool for being able to do that. So the map section and the group section are really useful tools for tracking what's currently going on in the stock market and what sectors are performing relatively well. It's really useful for trend following, and I highly recommend that you use this tool. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more finance and investing content. Thanks.